We're learning new details this morning about a break-in at the home of actress Sandra Bullock. The Oscar winner left her bedroom and found a stranger standing in her hallway last month.
Sandra Bullock has remained a shining figure in Hollywood, admired for her charm and skills. Yet, beyond the camera, fame could not protect her from betrayal, scandal, and the heartbreaking loss that struck at the core of her world. Each triumph on screen was shadowed by battles she fought alone, battles that left scars hidden from her fans. Now, the truth of her struggles has come to light, revealing a story far worse than the world knows. Join us as we unravel the tragedy that now hangs over Sandra Bullock at 61.
Thank you for giving me the opportunity to the family that made this film, that gave me the opportunity to do something different. John Lee Hancock, Gil Netter, Alcon, Warner Brothers.
Against all odds. Born on 26 July 1964 in Virginia, Sandra Bullock's childhood did not stay fixed in one place. Her mother worked as an opera singer, and her father had a career tied to music and teaching. Because of this, Sandra grew up moving between the United States and Germany. She spent long stretches of time in Europe, where she picked up the German language and absorbed a lifestyle that blended American and European influences. These early shifts taught her how to step into different settings and adjust herself with ease. As a child, she often followed her mother's career, spending hours backstage at opera houses. Watching rehearsals and listening to voices rise gave her a taste of performance long before she imagined it for herself. She joined small children's roles in some productions, learning to move on stage and keep her focus while surrounded by adults. These early steps did not seem extraordinary at the time, but they planted seeds for her later career. She was not raised in luxury, but she grew up in an environment where music, art, and discipline governed everyday life. In 1976, when her family returned to the United States, Sandra began adjusting once again, this time to American schools. The move was not easy on her, as she carried a strong European influence in her manners and accent. Her classmates laughed at her unusual clothes from Germany, and her accent made her stand out in ways that brought more teasing. What could have been a time of connection turned into years of humiliation that left her feeling apart from everyone else. Standing at the edges of rooms, she learned to notice others who were overlooked, and that sense of empathy would later guide both her life and her career. However, she worked hard to fit in. She joined cheerleading and began finding ways to connect with peers. She threw herself into activities, always eager to push forward and carve out space for herself. These efforts helped her build confidence, showing her how to stand out and also blend in when needed. After finishing high school, she enrolled at East Carolina University in North Carolina. She started with general studies, but later leaned toward drama. She joined the theater program, where she began acting in stage productions. With this direction, she started to build skills that carried her closer to a professional path. She did not stop at schoolwork alone. She drove to nearby cities, took part in local productions, and picked up experience whenever she could. She knew she needed to step out of small circles and move toward bigger ones. At some point, Sandra decided to leave college before graduating, choosing to chase opportunities directly. She packed up and moved to New York City, a place where many young actors tried to break into the industry. Life there was not easy. She worked odd jobs to pay rent, including bartending and waitressing, while also studying acting with coaches who pushed her to sharpen her craft. The struggle was heavy, but she kept at it, moving from one audition to another, never giving up, even when rejection came more often than success. In New York, she took small parts in student films and stage plays. These projects did not bring her fame, but they gave her valuable practice in front of audiences and cameras. She also landed work in off-Broadway productions, learning to hold attention on stage and deliver lines with precision. She pushed herself to take on roles outside her comfort zone, which helped her grow as a performer. Slowly, she began to draw notice for her energy and natural presence. Her path eventually pulled her toward television and film auditions. She picked up minor roles in TV movies and low-budget films during the late 1980s. These jobs did not make her a star, but they gave her credits that built her resume. She moved to Los Angeles, where she started catching more opportunities. The transition from stage and small projects to screen was gradual, but she stayed persistent. She lived modestly, stretching each paycheck, but her determination held her steady. By the early 1990s, Sandra had gained enough attention to step into larger productions. Casting directors began to notice her mix of charm and strength. She was offered supporting roles in films that reached wider audiences, bringing her closer to the breakthrough she had been chasing. Years of moving from city to city and of building herself through trial and error had prepared her. She would no longer be just another struggling actress, but a rising figure in Hollywood. But that wasn't the end of her challenges. The Blind Side controversy. In 2009, the film Blind Side gave Sandra Bullock even greater fame. The movie became a global success, earning around $300 million at the box office and making millions more from home video sales. Her performance brought her an Academy Award and gave her a role that became one of the highlights of her career. Yet years later, the film that had once been celebrated was surrounded by heavy controversy, with legal battles and accusations turning a heartwarming story into a bitter dispute. The movie was inspired by Michael Oher's story, a professional football player whose life appeared to change after meeting the Tuohy family. On screen, the narrative followed a black teenager from a troubled background who rose to college stardom with the help of a wealthy white family. Audiences worldwide embraced the story as uplifting, but Oher has now stepped forward to challenge the very foundation of it. Through a lawsuit, he revealed that he was never adopted by the Tuohys, despite the way the film portrayed his relationship with them. According to his claims, the family convinced him to sign papers when he was just 18 years old. Those papers, he explained, were not adoption documents, but rather a conservatorship agreement. By signing it, he handed over control of his financial decisions to the Tuohys, even though he was already an adult. He argued that this arrangement was used to make business deals in his name, and he never gained the legal protection or recognition of being their son. The Tuohys strongly denied his accusations. They described his claims as deeply unfair and damaging to their reputation. They also rejected the idea that they had gained massive profits from the success of the film, calling the lawsuit an attempt to pressure them into giving money. For them, the accusations went against the image they had built over the years, and they tried to push back against the growing storm. The movie itself had been based on Michael Lewis's book, The Blind Side: Evolution of a Game. It shared Oher's childhood, marked by poverty and a mother struggling with addiction. The Tuohys entered his life during those years, and the book told the story as one of kindness and transformation. The film took that same path, painting the family as generous guardians who gave Oher a new life. Yet Oher has now argued that the reality was very different, and that he was not truly welcomed as a member of the family in the way the public was led to believe. In his petition, Oher asked the court to end the legal ties created by the conservatorship. He insisted that he had never received fair compensation for the movie, even though it was based entirely on his life. He stressed that his story would not have existed without him. Yet he claimed he was left with nothing, while others gained millions. The filmmakers, however, had chosen not to comment on the matter, leaving the debate focused mainly on O'Hare and the Tuohys. The dispute has sparked wider conversations about the so-called white savior narrative in Hollywood. Many critics have pointed out how films often highlight white characters as rescuers of non-white characters, creating stories that place emphasis on one side of the relationship rather than the other. The blind side has now been caught up in this debate, and Sandra Bullock's role has become a central part of it. For her performance as Lee Ann Tuohy, Bullock won her first Academy Award. At the time, she was praised for her strong and emotional portrayal. Now, however, some critics have gone as far as to argue that she should give back the Oscar because the story reinforced a narrative that many find harmful. They claim the role carried forward an image that does not reflect the truth, and that the acclaim it received is undeserved in light of the new revelations. Not everyone agrees with that view. Some critics have defended Bullock, saying she only played the part she was given and should not be blamed for the controversies around the real story. They argue that she worked with the material provided and that her performance should be separated from the ongoing legal conflict. Sandra Bullock herself has expressed deep sadness over the situation. Seeing the success of the film being shadowed by allegations and lawsuits felt very painful. Moreover, she had other problems to worry about. Stalking incidents. Beginning in 2002, Sandra Bullock faced a frightening situation that stretched across several states. A man named Thomas James Weldon started following her from place to place. His obsession grew stronger, and soon she had to take legal action. By 2003, she was granted a restraining order against him that was meant to protect her for 3 years. Around that time, Weldon admitted himself into the Middle Tennessee Mental Health Institute in Nashville. Even though he was being treated, the fear did not go away. Later, when news came that he might be released on a 90-day furlough, Bullock decided she needed even stronger protection. She pushed to have the stay-away order extended because she knew that his behavior could start again. Bullock explained in court papers how Weldon would not leave her alone. He followed her across long distances from Michigan to Texas, and then all the way to California. He sent emails, faxes, and countless messages. At one point, he even called her phone repeatedly, trying to get her attention. For Bullock, the constant pressure turned into a pattern of fear that kept her looking over her shoulder. After the first restraining order expired, Weldon was released from the institution. Instead of walking away, he went back to his old ways and once again traveled across several states in search of her. It forced Bullock to return to court and obtain another restraining order, showing how the cycle of obsession would not stop on its own. By 2007, another disturbing case came up. This time, it was a woman named Marcia Diana Valentine. One morning in April, she was found lying on the ground outside the Orange County home that Bullock shared with Jesse James. When James confronted her, she bolted to her car and tried to run him over. Investigations revealed that Diana had been deeply obsessed with Bullock. Her behavior quickly turned into a criminal case. She was charged with aggravated attack and stalking. Without wasting much time, Bullock responded by seeking another restraining order to keep Diana far away from her home, her family, and her work for 3 years. Valentine pleaded not guilty at first, but the evidence against her was strong. Eventually, she was convicted of stalking and placed on 3 years of probation. Even though she avoided prison, the court's judgment proved that her actions were dangerous and unacceptable. Years later, in June 2014, Bullock faced yet another terrifying ordeal. A man named Joshua James Corbett broke into her Los Angeles home. She had to act quickly to protect herself. She locked herself in a room, picked up the phone, and dialed 911.
My closet, I have a safe door in my bedroom, and I've locked it, and I've locked in the closet right now. I hear someone banging on the door.
Police came and handled the situation, but the experience was traumatizing. Corbett was later charged, and 3 years later, he pleaded no contest. His sentence placed him under 5 years of probation and a 10-year protective order, keeping him away from Bullock. But Corbett's story did not end there. By 2018, he missed a court date, and officers went out to arrest him at his parents' home, where he was living in a guest house. When the police arrived, he refused to come out and threatened to open fire on them. A SWAT team was called in, and for 5 long hours, they tried to bring him out. Eventually, they deployed gas canisters and entered the house. Inside, they discovered that Corbett had taken his own life. The Los Angeles County coroner later reported that he passed away from multiple self-inflicted wounds. Over the years, Bullock found herself facing situations that most people could never imagine. From long-term stalking to dangerous confrontations and even a home invasion, she had to fight to keep herself safe again and again. Each case showed how unpredictable and unsettling obsessive behavior could become, forcing her to turn to the courts and law enforcement to put up barriers and guard her life. Meanwhile, her personal life wasn't spared either. Love and loss. Sandra Bullock's personal life has seen moments of happiness, deep struggles, and heartbreaking loss, shaping her life in ways that often reached far beyond Hollywood. The story began in 2005 when she married Jesse James, the well-known motorcycle builder and television personality behind the show Monster Garage. Their bond started when Bullock arranged for her 10-year-old godson to meet James as a Christmas gift, and from that moment, her path with James moved into marriage. Their marriage soon brought challenges that entered the spotlight. In 2009, Bullock and James became deeply involved in a custody battle with James's second ex-wife, Janine Lindemulder, a former adult film actress. The fight centered around James's daughter, who was only 5 years old at the time. Bullock and James eventually won full legal custody, giving them responsibility for raising the child. For a brief period, their household seemed united, but the stability did not last long. In early 2010, a scandal broke that shook Bullock's marriage. Several women came forward claiming to have had affairs with James during the years he was married to her. These revelations came only a few months after Bullock's career reached a high point with the film The Blind Side. Instead of celebrating her professional success, she was forced to step away from her promotional commitments in Europe, citing personal reasons. While her professional life was thriving, her family was falling apart. James eventually admitted his role in the collapse of their marriage. He acknowledged responsibility and later checked himself into a rehabilitation facility to confront personal issues. Despite those efforts, Bullock decided to move forward on her own. In April 2010, she filed for divorce in Austin, Texas, and by June of that year, the divorce was finalized. The reason cited was conflict of personalities, a simple phrase that carried the weight of betrayal, heartbreak, and disappointment. For several years afterward, Bullock focused on her work and her children. Then, in 2015, a new chapter in her personal life began when she met Brian Randall, a model-turned-photographer. Their meeting took place at her son Louis's birthday party, where Randall had been hired to take photographs. From that moment, their bond grew naturally, and within months, they were seen together more often. Their relationship became public when they appeared side by side on the red carpet at the Los Angeles premiere of Our Brand is Crisis later that year. Over time, rumors swirled about possible engagements or wedding, but Bullock's representatives denied those stories. What mattered most to her was the partnership they built. In 2021, Bullock spoke openly about her choice not to remarry after her difficult divorce from James. She explained that she had found the love of her life in Randall and did not need legal papers to prove commitment. Together, they raised her 2 children, and Randall also remained close to his own older daughter. Bullock often spoke about Randall's role in their family. She described him as someone her children could look up to, someone who set an example through his actions and beliefs. Although they sometimes saw things differently, especially since Randall was deeply religious, Bullock valued the way he guided their family. He represented strength, stability, and devotion. Their relationship carried on for several years, marked by loyalty and shared responsibility. Yet, life took a heartbreaking turn when Randall was diagnosed with ALS, a progressive and devastating disease. He chose to keep his health battle private, focusing on living his life away from public attention. For 3 years, he faced the illness with quiet strength, surrounded by those who loved him. On August 5, 2023, Randall passed away at the age of 57. His family released a statement 2 days later, confirming his demise and honoring the way he handled his illness. They shared how he had chosen to keep his journey private, and how they respected his wishes during those difficult years. The family expressed deep gratitude toward the doctors and nurses who cared for him, acknowledging the sacrifices they made along the way. His passing left Bullock and her children facing a painful loss. After years of building a life together, she now had to find a way forward without him. His presence had been central to her family's everyday life, and his influence shaped the way her children grew. The grief carried both personal heartbreak and the challenge of moving on while honoring his memory. Bullock's story shows how her personal journey has been filled with both joy and sorrow. Even in loss, she carried with her the values and strength that brought her to where she is today. If you enjoyed this video, like and subscribe, and also click the next video shown on your screen.